I'm now of the mindset, and I'm maybe a little behind on this because you're way ahead of me on this, but I'm of the mindset where if I want to learn something, I'm not going to go enroll in college classes. I'm going to go hire someone up. Hey, I'll pay $40 an hour. I want 10 hours of your time. I want to learn about this.
Yeah.
Way more valuable.
This episode is sponsored by Southern Utah Safe and Vault. It's one-stop shop, buy, education, delivery, everything you need with the safe or a vault door. Website is safesfirst.com. Their showroom is 1397 West, Sunset Boulevard, number 115 in St. George, Utah. Phone number is 435-767-7878. Hey guys, welcome back to the Derrik Leg podcast. We're back in the vault again today, episode 109, with a very good friend of mine. It's funny because we see each other a lot on social media and different business things, and I love it when I can actually sit down and talk.
It takes a lot for us to get in person.
We don't actually do that a lot. So today we've got Derrik Staheli. How's it going, man?
Hey, good. Yeah, we're happy to be here, man.
Yeah. And the other side of it is, I guess it plays along with that, is we're both pretty busy. So
we're busy. Yeah.
Part of the podcast, that's what I like about it, man. Because even if it's a lot of the times it's people I don't know.
Yeah.
And so when I can even bring my friends in, I'm like, this is an hour and a half we wouldn't have gotten anyway.
Exactly.
It's like an excuse to sit down and chat. Anyway, dude, we've got a couple topics we want to go through, a couple that are close to both of us. And I kind of want to start there.
Okay.
And I'll kind of just let you tell, what you're going to talk about, and then I'll just kind of guide the conversation. But I think it's still pretty close to you. So I'll just kind of let you tell the story. But this will be a little bit of a mental health, a little bit of a suicide episode, just a preference what we're going to go through. We're both local business owners. Derrik Staheli's the serial entrepreneur. So we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about. I just want to cross the whole suicide category topic first.
Yeah, I think that's a good starting point. Happy to be here. I appreciate you inviting me back on. If I remember right, me and Derrik Lake did a podcast a year and a half, 2 years ago or something.
Yeah.
And if I remember right, that was before my brother passed away, correct?
It was.
Yeah. So, and then shortly after, I reached out to Derrik Lake and said, hey, let's do another podcast. I want to talk about this, but life just got busy. Never made it back on. So I'm glad we're kind of reconnecting that bridge there. But I don't know where to start, but about a year and a half ago, my brother, he was going through some difficult things, and obviously we didn't know that at the time. And it's a long story, so I don't even know where to start. But so I sold my home to start my business. I'm living with my parents still. The real estate market went crazy, so I'm still trying to figure out housing situation. But I was living at home with my parents, and my brother Chandler was living there as well. He's a Marine. He just got back from deployment from a 4-year deployment, and one night we heard a knock at the door. My sister heard a knock at the door at 1 a.m, and Chandler answered the door, went out, and he was gone for about 20 minutes. And then he comes back in, and my sister went into the front room to wait for him to come back in, and my sister was like, "What? Who was that?" And my brother Chandler just kind of blew it off. He's like, "It's no one." And my sister's like, "Okay, whatever." And so she went back to sleep. And that was the last time anyone had ever seen him. And there was a lot of mystery around that. We didn't know what the heck that was for quite a while. And so the very next morning, this was, I can't remember the exact dates, but it was around the 19th, 20th of December. And the very next morning, Chandler was gone. We thought he went to work. And from that point till we found out that he had passed away was about 4 or 5 days. Yeah, well, because we found out on Christmas, but
yeah, I was gonna say I knew it was right around.
Yeah, around Christmas, but So after we found out that he called in sick to work, and for the following day, and then we followed up with that, and then they're like, well, he's a no-show the day after he called in sick. So we started to worry, and we put some information out on social media about his car, his license plate, what he looked like, and someone said, well, we just saw him, a couple days ago, and he was out on a dirt road out in the middle of nowhere. We stopped and asked if he needed help. He said he was fine. And so we sent search and rescue out into that area, and that's where they discovered his body, out on a mountain where he used to like to go hunting. But so anyways, that's kind of the story of what happened to Chandler. But months went by, we had no idea what that knock was. That was really bugging me. And I remember, do you know Brandon Armstrong?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So me and him talked a lot, and because his son passed away, and I was expressing to Brandon my concerns about all these mysteries. I'm like, who was that knock? Who knocked on the door? Where did he go? Why did he do this, and this? And this is kind of a side tangent, but I remember Brandon, so he stuck out in my mind. Brandon said something along the lines of, don't worry about the unknown questions. It'll eat you alive. Just focus on what you know about him. And I thought that was some really good advice. But anyways, to fast forward a little bit to what we know now, and I don't want to say a whole lot because there's still another party involved. We've never obviously talked to this other person or anything, but Chandler was seeing a girl. One thing led to another. They had an intimate relationship. She later claimed that he had molested her sexually, and the cops were the one that knocked on the door, and they wanted to get evidence from his car, and they were both under the influence of something at the time that this happened. And so it makes me so mad, and I try to not focus on this because my brother's a cop, and so he kind of knows how things work, and we've heard from multiple sources that nothing probably would have come about with this case. No charges probably would have been made or anything. They were just following their due diligence and stuff. But because there was enough evidence there that they both had agreed attention to this relationship. They were both under the influence of something, but Chandler didn't know that. The cops came and he was scared out of his mind, and so he didn't want to be. I guess he didn't. Well, he would want to, but he didn't want that to get out, and so it's frustrating. It's one of those things where you wish he would have said something. I wish I would have gone to him had I known, but I don't know. It is what it is, but
yeah,
it is frustrating. So
what Brandon was talking about with you. So I've told the story on here a handful of times, but for the people that are tuning in that don't know my background, my dad committed suicide a few years back, and he had drove his car off of Webb Hill, and the search and rescue guy that found him, so that like rappelled down the hill and found his body. My dad and I actually home taught his family when they moved into Washington. So I've known him forever,
yeah,
right? Like I watched their kids grow up, everything. And I know that he, struggled handling it as well. But so he rappelled down, and he kind of talked about, or I don't know if he actually told us. Anyway, the information had got out that my dad had drove off, and when he hit, it tossed like threw his body out of the car. And then he was there for, it was Memorial Day weekend, and they found him. They're thinking it was a day or two, and they might have all this figured out now, but at the time, yeah, that we're pretty sure. We don't know if he died on impact, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Right.
And my brother Jason and I, after the whole thing happened and we found out it was him and they found his body and he's dead and, and everything, Jason and I spent like the next 3 nights together. Like we had friends all coming over and hanging out, and he'd come over to the house, and everyone was just kind of just being there for both of us. Right. And when everyone would leave, Jason and I would sit there and talk. And luckily for me, I don't know if luckily is the right word, but for me, I had kind of dealt with not ever talking or seeing my dad again.
Yeah.
I'd almost like grieved him in my own, in my own relationship with him. Right. And so when I'd sit there and talk to Jason, he would be like, dude, do you think he laid there like alive for a day? Or do you think that, and he'd go through all these scenarios like you're saying.
Yeah.
And I just told him like, dude, figure out the best scenario that you can come up with for him and believe that's what it is.
And that's
because no one will ever know.
Yep. You won't know. Yeah. I've had those same thoughts because I've heard, I kind of went into this crazy suicide information journey, just reading about everything about it after Chandler passed. And I read, it's been a while now, but I read a statistic where most people that attempt suicide don't want to follow through with it. And so, my brother, he did it with a gun. And me and my family members have had conversation where, do you think he actually meant to pull the trigger? Was it a hair trigger and he didn't mean to actually pull it? I don't know. And I've had the same thoughts, how long did it, was it instant? Was it, so I don't know. It's been a crazy journey to, I don't know, to go from point A of, all these things stick out in your memory of, well, that was the last time I talked to him. Why didn't I actually talk to him? And I've mentioned this on Facebook and stuff too. We had a Christmas party and I threw a local Christmas party in Enterprise and I invited Chandler to come. And Chandler was kind of, looking back now, I can tell that he was distancing himself from our family for these reasons or whatever. And I invited him because I knew he probably wouldn't come, and he did come. And I remember looking across the big room full of people. I'm like, oh, Chandler came. He actually drove my wife and kids over, and I saw him over there. I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to go say hi to him. But I was busy setting up some things. So I didn't go over. And next thing I know, he had taken off. He went to go do what he does. I don't know. He was such a closed off person, but that was the last time I saw him. And I was so mad at myself for the longest time for not just walking over there and being like, hey, thanks for coming. But it is what it is. I mean, you can't change the past, and you got to, like I said, you got to focus on the good. But yeah.
Well, and I think sharing the story of both of us, right? Like, I think that's the impact of it. I think that's what you can do.
Right.
Think of the next person that hears this and they're in the situation like that, and they're busy setting up tables for a dinner, and they see someone walk in. It's like, okay, now you need to stop and go say hi to them.
Yeah, listen to your gut feeling, that still small voice, whatever you want to call it, but just go do it. And it's frustrating because it's not a talked about topic, suicide in general. It's, I mean, you've gone through it in your family, and I think it's getting better, but I've been on, I've talked about it with other podcast things and stuff, but it's just one of those things where people don't talk about. It's such a hush-hush thing, like the word suicide. It's such a taboo topic. But
well, my struggle with it is, and you might have great input on this because you have kids, right? So selfishly, and I've always been super open on the podcast, but selfishly, I had, when my dad was alive, and I kind of never planned on talking to him again. I had nieces and nephews that knew him, right? And I always thought, like, man, when the time comes that I have a kid, like, how am I going to navigate him not knowing his grandpa, but his cousins do? And so again, selfishly, like, when he did take his own life, there was a part of me that was like, well, I won't have to ever explain this to my kid now, of why he doesn't know him.
Right.
And at my dad's funeral, to my knowledge, there were people that didn't want the suicide and the depression and all that talked about. My brother, who stepped in to help with the funeral, kind of said, like, hey, if I'm going to be a part of it, and we're going to be a part of it, because my dad was remarried, like, this needs to be talked about, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
So here's my question to you, man. Like, your kids knew him, right? I mean, they saw him every day.
Yeah, every day. Yep.
And so how do you navigate that? Because I think that, and I'd love to hear your input, because I think even with my kid, You know, I mean, William's almost 3 now. At what point does the suicide topic come up?
I know.
Has it already come up?
No.
How do you know what I mean? Like,
no, and that's where I'm hypocritical, because I'm like, we're not talking about it. But
right.
I don't tell my kids that. And I don't know, me and my wife have had a lot of long, hard conversations about that very thing. Because my oldest he'll be 9 in a month or two. And the story we've told him is, well, he got in an accident on this. He knows we've driven to that mountain where we found him, but I think my oldest is getting smarter because the family talks about it a little bit around, you know, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And maybe some of your listeners can give some input, because it's a tough topic. I mean, how do you tell little kids that someone took their life purposely?
Well, because I don't even want that to be a thought in my son's head, right?
Exactly.
But at the same time, it's like, well, you need to know that these things happen, and if you get to this place, you need to have
need to talk to us.
Yeah, you need to have a plan B, right?
Exactly, and that's exactly where I struggle too as a parent of younger kids. And I don't know. For me, me and my wife have kind of decided, you know, when we feel that their mind is a little more mature enough to have that conversation. I don't know if that's 12, 13, I don't know, but it on the other side of that coin, it's scary, because my sister that lives over in Hurricane, she was telling me just a few months ago about I think it's a 14 or 15-year-old boy that committed suicide in that area here locally. And so I don't know. I mean, you don't want to, like you said, you don't want to push that topic off, you know, sweep it under the rug until they get to a point where it's too late. But I don't know. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I mean, I think I'm in a little different situation because he didn't know him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I just had my brothers on here. I could have asked my brother Mike how he's navigating it. But I think, I mean, where your kids had like a personal relationship with him, I think if it were me, I'd either consult a psychiatrist or
that's a good...
Or have one present, you know, and say like, if you have a good family friend or someone that is, I mean, like we've had Marty Coford on the podcast, and that's what he is. And I always think like, well, if it ever gets to the point where I think I need to bring him in, I'd just call him and be like, dude, I need some help. I need some help explaining, or I need some, or if he has questions that I don't know the answer to, I might need help navigating that. I don't know though. But it's a topic on my mind, and I've talked about it a handful of times on and off air with guests that we've had here. Is like, well, how do you go through that? And I guess it's the same, like you said, it's when they're at that maturity, but man, suicide's getting more people are committing suicide at a younger age. And to me, it's scary.
It is scary. What would you attribute that to? Do you think, just first thought, why do you think it's such a big
in younger? Well, I think I think it's a lot of things, but I think it's mental health. I think it has to do with the LGBTQ 9/11 alphabet. It's
9 or 9er.
I don't say that disrespectfully. I'm just, I think that's what it is. I think there's not a lot of discipline. I think people don't know how to work through things. I think that, but there's so many different situations of why someone gets to that point as well. Yeah. Like I think your brother and my dad are two completely different things. That's the same outcome.
Yep.
But yeah, I think every generation thinks the generation after them are softer.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm like, I think that's part of it. And I also think that parents, our age and maybe a little older, they're just not as present with their kids. Yeah. My parents, at least, were, like I was telling you before we got on, my dad coached every sports team we were a part of. He was there every Saturday. He was there every day after work at practice. And, my parents were very present with us. Right.
Yeah. I think technology and a lot of things have disconnected a lot of people from reality and sucked them into this whirlwind black hole of life is perfect on your device. Yeah. But here, my life's a shit show. So I don't know. I think it does cause a lot of mental
So what's the solution to that though? Because it's not technology, like
it's not
your
going
cell
anywhere.
phone's not going away.
No, it's not.
And I think it plays both roles because it takes kids to that and maybe younger adults to that place of I'm not perfect, but it's also taking parents away from kids,
right?
Because
Exactly.
they're glued to it.
There's a whole slew of problems,
right?
It does. And, I can't speak for everyone who has kids, but me and my wife have decided 18 is when they're getting their phone. I know it won't be that, but man, I don't ever want my kids to have a smartphone. There's just way too much power and technology. And
well, I think the problem gets to, and my kid's not at that age, but from what I gather from other people, is it's when they start getting involved in things.
Yeah.
I mean, like there was always just a phone on the wall everywhere we went.
Exactly.
You know, like if we were at Young Men's, there was a phone at the
Yeah.
church. If we were out playing bikes and there's
phone somewhere.
Right. There's a grocery store.
Yeah.
Like that's not a reality anymore. So I think that's part of, I wouldn't call it an excuse. I think it's a legitimate.
Right. It is. That's true. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. It frustrates me because I think kids and even us adults are being attacked on every side by something. They're just, I feel like there's this big heavy attack on the family, the kids, and it drives me crazy. I always try and figure out, like we're talking about now, I always try and figure out, well, what's the solution? What can we do? How can we prevent another Chandler situation? But I don't know. I don't know what that solution is yet. And maybe there's not. Maybe there's just preparing them to, like you said, teaching them, preparing them. But
well, I think that's what it's going to have to be. And every time anything like this gets brought up, I think of the same story. Tyler Campbell talked about it on the podcast, and he was with a couple coworkers, and they were talking about if one of their kids ended up being gay, and they were talking about all the things that they would do to him. All the way from like having a stern talking to tying them to a couch and making them watch porn to be attracted to women or men or, whatever side, the other sex.
Yeah.
And it went full scale in my mind of what these guys were saying that they were going to do to their kids. And they and they're maybe 15 years older than Tyler at the time. And they turned to Tyler and they're like, right, like trying to get him to join into the conversation. And all he said was, man, if that was my kid, the only thing I know he needs is a hug.
Yep.
And he's like, he needs to know I love him.
100%.
And dude, that's how I was. And Tyler, I don't know if you know Tyler Campbell. He's
I don't know if I do.
Ex-Marine, super deep voice, big guy, jiu-jitsu, gym, right? Like mohawk haircut. Like I love the guy to death. And so when he was telling the story, I was like, oh man, I wonder what he said. Yeah. Exactly. And so for him to say that, I was like, dude, you're in the right spot. Yeah. And he's got 3 boys.
Oh, really?
And so that are high school to, I don't know, 12, 13, maybe 3 of them. And so for him to say that, I was just like, dude, you're in the right spot. Like, and I think the macho guys, and I've been guilty of that too. Your mind just goes the other way, like your pack mentality joining into it, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you bring that up because when I was in high school, I don't want this to come across the wrong way because I'm sure I'm getting a lot of comments or whatever, but I used to have that same mentality of if my kid is ever gay, no way, nope, disown him, wouldn't even talk to him. I was a stupid high school kid, didn't know any better, but but a lot of situations along the way leading up to where I am now have changed that thought process to 180 degrees. One of my best friends that I had in high school, he ended up being gay. I didn't know that until not too long ago. And then just the fact that my brother went through a lot of dark moments and he felt like he couldn't come to any of us because he probably thought we'd be judgmental, and we probably would have been. I don't know. But no, me and my wife have had that same conversation of what if one of our kids came to us and said, Dad, this is who I am now, whatever that is, something that is completely out of the norm for what me and my wife currently believe. How would we react? And we've both agreed there's nothing worth losing your child physically, like him committing suicide, him or her leaving and never looking back and never talking to you again. There's nothing worth jeopardizing that. And so yeah, I agree with Tyler and your thought process of you just hug them, accept them, love them. It's okay. People, I think a lot of things along the way, like I mentioned, have made me realize that it's okay for people to have different thought processes, beliefs. And you can still, politically, religiously, whatever that is, you can still love people and accept them and be friends with them. I feel like nowadays social media has turned people against each other very easily. If you believe something differently, then you're an awful person.
Well, I'm pulling up a song, dude, because there's a song that kind of talks about this, and I'm trying to find it exactly. So bear with me for a second. No,
take your time. I'll just be rambling on about something.
Well, I don't typically like pull my phone out. I have a couple of times. I know the song it's Colum Scott is his name, is the singer. And maybe I shouldn't say this. I was going to say, I think he is gay, but really? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But his song is of the standpoint of someone that is. Yeah. And he talks about like being able to be honest with his mom, and she like accepts him. And then when he started getting more confidence about it, he goes and talks to like his friends at school, and they all make fun of him, call him names. Yeah. And so he comes home and tells his mom. And then like as he gets older, he becomes successful, whatever, right? Right. And he says like there's still one piece that's missing, and it's telling his dad. And when he goes and that for me, like if I was in that shoes, telling my dad would have been terrifying. Yeah. Right. And then he talks about he tells his dad, and his dad accepts him, if I remember right. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. But like I heard it the other day just pop up on my Pandora, and I was like, don't get me like I'll be honest. I'll be honest on the podcast, man. I'm still like 50s on the whole, like except if you're an adult and that's who you are, great. I have zero problem with it. Right. If you're 9 and you're telling me,
I agree.
Then I think we need to have a conversation.
Right. I agree with that.
But I mean, would I tie him to a chair and make him watch pornography? No. Right. Like I think that you need to be to the point of some brain development,
which doesn't occur in men until like 20s.
Yeah. I think it's 24, 25. Right. Anyway, I mean, I don't even know how we got down this rabbit hole, dude. Now we're gonna have a whole community after me, dude. I'm not trying that. But I think it goes back to the mental health side of it, regardless of what anyone thinks that is. And I'm not even saying gay people are mentally ill. I'm not saying that either. Right. But it's just, if it comes to that point, I would hope that my son, my friends, my siblings would
have enough trust in you.
Like, dude, I'm no judgment, man. Call me, because it's a terrible thing, dude. And then I want to shift the gears onto this we'll have, I think, a similar but different standpoint on this too, is now everyone's left here to handle it and to navigate it. And what we were talking about a little bit with kids, siblings, parents, and like when my dad passed, I was scared for my mom and sister.
In what way?
I didn't know how they would process it. Right. Like I knew my mom would be okay. I think she's still processing it today.
I realize I know nothing about you. I didn't even know you had a sister. We'll have to have a podcast.
I've got a younger sister. So there's 4 boys and a little sister. The boys are all 2 years apart.
I thought it was all boys.
And I'm the youngest boy, and then I have a little sister. Okay. It's 5 years under me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny because I brought Jason and Mike on, and we did a podcast together, and I was like, okay, it's time to bring Katie on and give her own podcast, right?
Did you come on yet?
I don't think she knows this yet, but we're going to line her up and do it. I've talked to Mallory a little bit about it, but
nice. Anyways.
Yeah. Where was I?
You're worried about your mom and your sister.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, when it was all going on and my dad still lived at home, like at our house, that was my fear. And sometimes I feel like I have to be a little cautious because I know my mom will listen to this. Yeah. And she takes a lot on herself of what I was going through at the time. I basically was like traditionally what you would call man of the house. Like I was paying the bills. I was shouldering a lot. I was trying to duct tape everyone's relationships together. I was walking in on my dad trying to commit suicide, talking him out of it, getting him in a space where him and I could talk. Like I was going through a lot for a 20-year-old.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And my mom, I know, like, I think there's some, she shouldn't, but I think there's some blame on herself.
Yeah.
Honestly, for me, I'm like, that's something I went through, and I hope that I can affect other people in a positive way because of it. Like that's honestly the way I see it.
Right.
And it's something I went through and got through, and like I saw the other side.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so when it happened, they called my mom, told my mom after my dad's body was found, and she was working with Jason at the time at 25 Main. They owned that cafe. Jason and Adam did.
Yeah.
And so they told my mom, and again, I wasn't there, but I guess she just kind of, I don't know if she went into the office, but like went into her room and she's like, I don't know how I'm going to call your siblings and tell your siblings, like my siblings. She's saying this to Jason. And Jason was like, I'll call them. Don't worry about it. I'll let them know. And so like he called me, called Mike, called Adam, called Katie. And my first fire response, like survival instinct, was I need to protect Mom and Katie.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a ton of talks with Katie. I mean, she lived with my mom at the time, so I knew my mom was there. Like I loved that Jason and I kind of got vulnerable with each other a few of those nights, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I think Mike went and saw the police photos and everything. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to see any of that.
Yeah, some of my brothers did the same thing with Chandler.
Yeah. And anyway, like the funeral, if my mom and sister, like let's just say, heaven forbid, they weren't in the picture, I wouldn't even have gone to the funeral. But like I went because I was going to sit next to my mom.
It sounds like you took on a lot.
Yeah. And so but dude, I can't remember if we said it on air or not, but like I talked about who would me and my siblings be without my mom. I think we might have said it before we started recording, but that's how I've always felt. And I have a lot of debt I feel owed to my mom, and I know she'll disagree because she was just being a mom, but I'm like, man, if I can be there and help her, like why would I not? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But I mean, the only thing that's going through my mind is it's crazy how much you went through as a kid and up till now, and it's crazy that you came out on. It's not crazy. You're Derek Leg, but no,
you're fairly fragile.
No, that's impressive. I mean, a lot of people don't come out of stuff like that totally unscathed. But
well, I don't know if I am.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure.
I feel like I've like I said. Luckily is not the right word, but that's the only word I have to use. Like, luckily I dealt with a lot of that before it actually happened.
Right.
And I've talked about it. First panic attack I ever had was after all of this. My dad had left. I took over the family house because, I was already paying it all. So I took over the family house, rented out bedrooms to other people to help with the mortgage.
Try and make the mortgage, yeah.
And one night I panicked.
It's a lot, yeah.
And I was pacing up and down the house. There was like a fold out, like Lifetime plastic table. And for whatever reason, my body told me I should punch it. And like, I still have the table. It's funny because we have like duct tape over the hole.
Got to frame that on the wall.
And like I punched it. And at that point I was like, what am I doing? And I just went down, I went in my bedroom in the corner, and I just moved my rooms around because I took over the master. So it was like an big empty room. And I just sat in the corner and just put my head in my knees and cried. And I don't know how long I was crying until my mom randomly calls me and was like, what's up?
Like, funny you should ask.
Well, and I'm like, nothing, I'm fine. And I've told that story on here, but basically my mom's always had it.
Yeah.
Calls me out of the blue for no reason at 8:30 at night or whatever. And,
moms know best.
Yeah, she called my brother Adam, Adam and I have always been really close. So they both showed up to the house and took me to dinner, and we kind of worked through it and talked it out. And but yeah, I mean, dude, I'm far from unscathed, but I'd like to think that I'm a better person because of it. I do think that.
Yeah, definitely. You got got some things that you can relate to with people that are going through hardships. I think that's why we go through hardships. I think that's why God put us on this earth. Experience hard things.
I mean, anything like that, with any stories come up with you? I've had years to go through this stuff. It's still fairly.
Yeah, there's lots there. I'm still, we're a year and a half into it, and I'm still trying to navigate everything, still trying to process everything. And I think the grief cycle is the biggest thing that I've been experiencing, as far as, one day I'm totally fine. Everything's good. I've accepted it. And then it seems like the very next day, very next hour, I'm questioning, why didn't he come to me? Why didn't I go to him? Why didn't, all these what ifs, and then I'll even get to the anger cycle where I'm just mad. I'm mad he did it. I'm mad he was selfish enough to do that. But.
And not to make anyone feel worse, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
It is selfish.
Yeah. It's
like I said, now everyone else is left here to pick up the pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I don't know. I don't know. it's one of those unknowns. I love talking about it, but I just don't know what to say because there's so many. I wasn't in Chandler's head. I don't know what he was going through, but you just wish that someone going through that would open up, but I don't know.
Well, and it's this weird, dichotomy. Am I trying to say words I don't know now?
You're smarter than me. So.
Dichotomy, yeah.
Yeah, that's the right word, right? When I said it didn't come out right.
Sounded good.
That's like the yin and the yang with it is like when you're younger, like let's talk about the 14, 15-year-old and hurricane. Like I don't know the story, but like let's just go to that age. I at that age, I wouldn't have opened it up and talked about it. I would have felt like a punk.
Yep.
And so that's the hard part about it is when you're that age.
It's sad because that story, from the little that I know about it, is he was just a kid being bullied in school, and it's a really sad story, and I don't know how much I should share, but the uncle and aunt of them, my parents know pretty well, and the parents of that kid went on a rafting trip, and the kid wanted to stay home, and we know now why, probably, but they were without cell service, and they were on this rafting trip, and a helicopter was waiting for them at the end because of the kid, committing suicide. And it's sad over being bullied, and you think, well, that's not that big of a deal, but you don't know what that kid was going through. I don't know. Maybe it was relentless enough to where obviously it was to where he felt like he couldn't go on. But yeah, it's one reason I don't I don't send my kids to public school, but that's just me. I don't know. I think it goes back to social media and how kids just people are so ruthless sometimes. They just think that they can say things without any consequence. But
it's like the cool, like, I don't know, like when I was younger, I would have imagined it'd be like the cool thing to do. It's like team up with I don't know. It's all like a survival thing. Cause you're going to team up with the big guy so you don't get beat up.
Right,
so it makes now your pack mentality with the head dog. If he is a bully, then everything just goes south because everyone wants to be on his team.
I was a little asshole to people sometime when I was in. I'm sure I bullied some people, and I wish I wouldn't have. But I don't know.
We're gonna get some people out of the woodworks being like, "You Derek, you freaking hypocrites."
I don't know. I don't know if generations are getting softer, if bullies are getting worse, if people are getting meaner, or if it's some combination of both. I don't know.
I guess with social media, it can never end.
I know.
You go to school, get bullied, you go home, you're normal with your family.
Exactly.
But if it's going on all the platforms, then you just can't get away from it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, dude. If we can shift gears, unless there's anything else you want to bring up on that. Okay.
Let's go.
Because you brought up, you don't send your kids to public school.
Yeah.
Dude, I've said that for 2 years now that I'm going to homeschool my kid. But it's becoming more and more of a reality to me of I think I should. Why do you guys do it?
This is one of my most confident topics of discussion. So you just, we're going to be here for a couple hours now. Public school systems are, in my opinion, the biggest waste of time, biggest waste of energy. They're designed to separate kids from their parents for majority of the day. You think about it, you wake up, you rush to get your kids off to school. You don't see them for 5, 6, 7 hours.
And it's probably contentious a lot of the times.
Yep, exactly. And so you're without your kids, and the amount of homework that schools now give your kids, they come home, they work on homework for 2 or 3 hours. You eat dinner, you go to bed. So for multiple reasons, I despise public school systems, but that number one reason is you don't get to be with your kids hardly at all. And not even mentioning the extracurricular activities. And, I ran track, cross country, I wrestled a little bit. I thoroughly enjoyed extracurricular activities, but nowadays they just seem to pile it on. And so I think for me and my family, that wasn't an option. I thoroughly enjoy hanging out with my kids. And yeah, I'm like every parent. I want a break from them. I'll need a break. But for the most part, I did not want to send my kid off to have someone else teach them what I felt I could teach better. I look back and I try and remember what I learned in high school, other than the basics of reading, basic English, basic math. I feel like 90% of what is taught in public school system is just a waste of time. It's not applicable to what I do in my business, and I don't think it's applicable in many, many jobs. And oh man, I could go off on a tangent of all the reasons I don't like public school system.
Well, so dude,
indoctrination.
That's what I was gonna say, dude. To me, it's like shift work. It's the government gets to control it. I'm the same, and I'm not even to that age where my kid's going to school. No, and I still believe all of this.
It's awful. We talked about this on I started a podcast, and we talked about this on one of our podcasts recently, where it's designed for shift work. It's designed for
so here's the caveat though, and I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
The caveat is, don't we need people to do shift work?
We do, but but you still don't need to go to public school system.
Okay. I got Wendy's on the way here because I went from one job to come straight here. Like I needed someone there to cook my $5 biggie bag, bro.
You can still do shift work and have a creative mind though. And I think that would allow the shift work to even improve itself.
Yeah, because if I'm cooking fries, dude, I can tell you what, I'm cooking the best freaking fries you've ever had.
That's right. The public school system just takes out the creative mind. It eliminates it. And I personally think it's on purpose. They teach you that failure is bad. You fail a test. They focus. It's all test focused. You fail a test, well, you might be held back. They teach you that you can't. And this is an interesting concept that I just heard a little while ago, the other day. In school, if you work together on a project that you're not supposed to work together on, that's cheating. If you work together on a test, that's cheating. But in the real world, business leaders, they get together and like, hey, let's figure this out together. Is that cheating? Or is that collaborating?
Yeah.
I don't know. Everything's backwards in my mind with public school system. Everything.
So I've been very open about what I think about the public school system. Yeah. and so this last year I started, I don't know, I get like down the road of, and this is what gets me in trouble because I have too many things already going on. Right. But I'll get down the road of like this, like bagging on public school system. And then it'll hit me one day of like, okay, well, what can Derek Legg do to change that? And probably not a lot, but like I should be able to do something.
Right.
And so then I reached out to a couple teachers that I know are still in the school system I had.
You're going toward, you're trying to change the whole system. So good for you.
So you're actually someone I was going to talk to about all this. So I guess we'll just have that conversation now. So at the end of last year, or I guess in January, I told myself like, hey, I don't even have a kid in school. Right.
Right.
But I think like, hey, if there's anything I can do to help out those kids because regardless, there's kids that are stuck in the public school system, right?
I mean, it's not for everyone, and not everyone can do it.
Right. And like, so with that said, what you said and what I agree with is not everyone's in the position to, that takes me down a whole nother rabbit hole of like, get in the position, right? But let's just say that you're not in the position. People do have normal, like my wife. I mean, she goes to the hospital and she works at the hospital. And like, she couldn't homeschool a kid with her schedule, right? She's on call. They're the trauma team in orthopedic surgery, but like I can, right? And so I just kind of thought like, well, what can I do? Because there are kids that the only place they get love, dude, is their teachers at school.
That's true.
There are kids that the only time they eat is lunch. Like there are kids that do benefit from school.
Yeah.
And so I thought, what could I do to try and help? What could, Dogtown raised Derrik Leg do? And so I reached out to a couple teachers and was like, hey, I've got a little background in business. I've been through some stuff, like talking about my dad, and I've failed in businesses. What I deem as I'm on the track to being successful in business.
Yeah, right.
I've gotten to a little real estate recently. And so I was like, this is kind of my background. Is there any business teachers, health teachers, real estate teachers, that I could come in and talk to a class and maybe they take something from it.
Right.
And so I reached out to Renee Martineau, who I'm actually going to get her on here one of these times. We were supposed to do it during the summer and then I didn't get her on.
Is she a teacher then?
So her first year of teaching was my senior year.
Oh, at Pineview?
At Pineview. And so she student taught. Mm-hmm. Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
So she was a student teacher for Shaw.
Oh, okay.
For Coach Shaw, Todd Shaw. Love you, Coach.
Yep.
If you're listening.
We love public schools.
Yeah. And so she was there. It was funny because she was there with the last name Brinkerhoff, I believe.
Oh, okay.
And then the next year, like I'm senior, all of us senior mentalities that run in the school, right? I get this teacher on 2 different classes, Martineau. And I'm like, dude, all my family went to Pineview. Like, I'm not having a teacher I didn't know.
I don't know.
And so I went into the counseling office and I'm like, hey, we need to switch these around. I'm not, we need to get a different teacher for health and economics or whatever it was. And then they're like, okay, like we'll switch, like we'll work with you. Just go for a couple days while we're ironing out all these other issues with other students.
Right.
And so I'm like, whatever. And so I go in the first day and it's what I knew of Miss Brinkerhoff is she got married during the summer. So now she's Miss Martineau.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so I walked in, I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm teaching. And so anyway, I've always had a great relationship with her.
That's cool.
I ended up having her for 3 different classes my senior year. And I've always just kept in contact. It seems like we bump into each other every now and then. So anyway, I reach out to her and I'm like, hey, I've got this idea. I want to help. I don't know how. These are some of the things I could talk about. This is my background. If there's anything I can do, let me know. And like that night, she messes me back and she's like, I'm going to link you up with the business teacher. She was she was a assistant principal at Crimson at the time, or last year. Mm-hmm. So she got me hooked up with the teacher there. I'd gone in and spoke in her entrepreneurship class.
For real.
And then I stayed and spoke in I think I did sports marketing first and then entrepreneurship. And then I went back and spoke again. And then she hooked me up with the guy at Pineview, where we went, right? Yeah. You went to Pineview. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. We went to Pineview and I went and spoke there. I stayed through lunch and spoke again.
That's fantastic.
So my goal was 12 classes.
12 classes.
Because I was like, 1 a month, not a big deal. And then you forget you got summer.
Right.
So now I got to double it up. And then after those first times, I'm already at 7 classes. So I'm pretty much I could line up 1 or 2 more days and be done. And now Miss Martineau just got, transferred, sent, moved, whatever the word is, to Hurricane.
Oh, really?
And so I've already talked to her. I talked to her the other day.
That's fantastic. It's a mindset I don't have. I'm like, I'm going to take my kids out of there and not even worry about it. But
well, dude, I don't think I'm going to put my kid in public school either. But like I said, when my mind kind of got going on okay, there were kids that we went to school with. I'm sure that that's when they ate. Right. I mean, what's the numbers, dude? 1 in 3 kids don't have food at home. Yep. So I think there is a huge purpose. You couldn't just shut it down.
Right.
There's too many kids that that's where they get love. That's where they get food. That's where they get structure. That's where there are some benefits for some kids. With that said, I think with the life that Amanda and I have built and what's freed me up to control my schedule, I'll probably homeschool my kid. Is that a good way to say it?
Yeah. And total disclaimer, I think all the teachers that I've ever had are amazing. It's just so much red tape from government up, and that's what's hard about public school. But with homeschool is, my people think that you need to teach your kid 4 or 5 hours a day. We teach our kids 1 to 2 hours a day, and that's all it takes. And I think with that one-on-one time versus having 30 kids in a class, it really just shrinks down the time that is required to teach your kids. So yeah, I think it's...
So take me through how this even works, because I wouldn't even know where to start if I was just like, I'm going to homeschool my kids, and now what?
Each state's different. Some states don't even allow you to homeschool. And if you do, you have to hire...
California?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you do, in some of those states, if they do allow it, you have to hire an actual teacher to come to your home and teach. So it kind of defeats the purpose of the parent wanting to teach the kid. But in Utah's pretty good. All you have to do is send a notice into the Washington County School District, letting them know that you're going to homeschool your kids. And that's it. There's no testing required. There's no, follow-up from any administrators or anything that have to come in and check on the work you're doing. So a lot of people are like, well, that's kind of sketchy, but is it? I mean,
yeah. Well, I personally want my kid to succeed.
Exactly. We're not going to, yeah. And I get it. Like you said, there are those small situations where there probably are some homeschooling parents that they're too lazy to send their kids to public school and they want to keep them home. And I'm sure there's some abuse, negligence that goes on, but
selfishness,
a lot of that stuff.
They're doing it for them, not the kid.
Exactly. But yeah, no, that's solid. Yeah. And there's a lot of programs out there. I don't want to name any good programs, but the Good and the Beautiful is a program that works really well. My wife was actually, she was a preschool teacher. That's what she went to school for. And she taught preschool for quite a few years. And then, she comes from a background of her mom was a teacher and stuff. And so she married me, and I had already had it in my mind before we had kids that I did not want to put my kids in public school. We don't vaccinate. We're one of those parents where we're just kind of crazy.
Just winging it.
And so I told my wife, I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. And she's like, why? Are you serious? We have to. Everyone's going to think we're weird. That's okay.
You let them.
But it's funny because after she taught in a public school setting for a few years, she actually saw herself, and I didn't have to convince her. She's like, you know what? My hands are tied with so many things. I can't do this. I can't get creative. I can't teach this way. It's all about what they make us teach. And that's kind of what bugged me.
Yeah.
We're the parents, and I feel like it's just one more thing that the state, the government, whatever you want to call it, is trying to take away from parents, the ability to mold their kids how they see best. It's not the state's job. It's my job. And so, but it doesn't work. It's not for everyone. It doesn't work for everyone. So yeah. I understand that.
So is there when they're 17, 18, if they want to get a GED, how does that work? Do they even need one anymore?
Yeah, no, you can get your GED, and it's all through the.
So just like you would anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you wouldn't have a high school diploma.
No,
but they're interchangeable now.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's another topic. Oh man, I think high school diploma is a waste of time too, or GED, whatever you want to call it. But that's just me.
It's just checking a box in some situations.
Exactly. I can't.
Well, so let me play devil's advocate a little bit, right? And let me try and think of what some of the rebuttals would be. I think about, I'll take my wife, for example. So she went through all the schooling, then she gets into college, and then you just have a GED to get into college, right?
Yeah.
So if you're taking do you see where I'm going?
Yeah,
so a lot of those higher degrees, is that taking those off the table now?
And that is the exception. If you're, obviously, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to go in the medical field, a dentist, a lawyer, obviously you have to do it.
But I guess that doesn't mean that your kid can you have a GED at 14?
Yeah.
And enroll in college classes. So you could still, if
you could still do
if you were driven that way, you could still do it.
Yeah. And obviously we'll push our kids to get their GED to keep those options open. But yeah. It's
but man, think of all the options they already have running all these businesses, bro.
Well, and that's the fun thing is half the time I'll take my kids to my business and we'll go over the basic reading, writing, math, and then I'll teach them, hey, this is how, I own a pawn shop. This is how pawn shop works. This is how money management is. This is how loans work. Things that are applicable. Me and my boys have talked about, we've talked about how the government's set up, how taxes are set up, and how we hate taxes. And I'm just kidding. But we talk about things that are actually applicable, starting a business. Me and my boy have talked about setting up, an actual LLC with a lemonade stand and talk about marketing, proper marketing and advertising, stuff like that, and reinvesting, all these things that are going to help a kid. Even if he doesn't go into business, he's actually going to have some tangible financial skills that he can take into any line of work, I think. So,
well, I'm sure you're the same as me. It's like, how many conversations do you have where people are like, well, I don't know how to run a business. I don't know how to set up a business. And I'm like,
neither did I.
Well, yeah, but I'm like, dude, come to my store and in 10 minutes, I'll have you an LLC.
Exactly.
Like, it's
not that hard to figure out.
Right.
Yeah, before I went into business, I had no idea. I just hopped on Google, learned a few things, talked to some people that did, and
luckily I had my brother Adam that kind of walked me through it all. But but think about your 9-year-old already has a background of looking through LLCs and just understanding that it's possible.
Right.
Because there's so many people that I talk to, at least, that'll have like business pitches and that's what scares them, is setting up the business back end.
Setting up all the back end.
And I'm like, like I've set them up like 7 times.
Exactly.
I do it for fun now sometimes.
I know. But yeah, I don't know. It's, I think I'm now of the mindset, and I'm maybe a little behind on this because you're way ahead of me on this, but I'm of the mindset where if I want to learn something, I'm not going to go enroll in college classes. I'm going to go hire someone up. Hey, I'll pay $40 an hour. I want 10 hours of your time. I want to learn about this.
Yeah.
Way more valuable going that route versus, okay, I'm going to sit in a class full of 40, 50 kids. I'm going to be talked to from the professor in the same way that he's talking to all these kids. We're going to go through a textbook. I'm going to take a test. If I pass it, that means I'm successful.
Right.
So I don't know. My mindset has definitely shifted a lot on how I learn things. So
when I was in one of those classes, I told him, I said, you can go take the real estate class from your high school and you'll probably learn some stuff. You'll have some buzzwords that you'll remember after it.
Yeah.
You'll kind of understand how a transaction happens.
Right.
But if you want to learn about real estate, I'm like, go look up the top 10 realtors in St. George and go tell them like, hey, I'll even pay you if you let me just roll with you. Right. I just want to learn this. And in real estate, I feel like it's easy because for the most part, it's just like moms and dads that are just people, right? And I bet half those people would, dude, you're in high school and you want to learn this stuff? Come shadow me for 3 hours a day.
And that's what I found out is a lot of people that have succeeded in those professions or whatever, they're excited to teach other people about it. That's most of the people that's their passion, is teaching other people about it. So
again, back to the conversation, I was like, I guess we'll just have now, is I was thinking this year with this school, I don't know, dude, like I get 2 feet in things and I'm just like, I'm ready to roll.
Right.
You know?
That's good.
And I was thinking about, and for some reason, I don't know what it is about Crimson because I have 0 ties to Crimson. But I helped out with their DECA club a little bit. Awesome. We raised, you put into, we raised money for them. And for some reason, like maybe it was just the shot that I got to even see if any of this was possible. So I just feel ties to that. But I'm like, maybe I get a group of entrepreneurs or realtors or lenders or lawyers or,
whatever.
Yeah. And just say like, go tell these business teachers who are great and are doing, what the state allows them to teach.
Right.
But what if in that real estate class, I bring Eric Gubler in, that's one of the top realtors in St. George. Like, what if I bring him in for an hour? Like, you tell me they're not going to get something from that?
Right.
Or the entrepreneurship, we bring you in and talk about entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And so I've had this kind of gears turning in my head. And it was more of like, I guess I just need to work on that list.
That would be amazing. And
wouldn't that be cool?
That would be so cool. And like you said, there's nothing wrong. Teachers are amazing. Every teacher I've met, they're all amazing. But for a couple of reasons, their hands are tied. with certain curriculum they have to teach. And also, I think kids will get a lot more out of something if they see this big realtor or this big, someone actually in that profession that comes in and talks to them versus their teacher that they see every day. So
yeah,
that's amazing.
Well, and I saw that. Like when I went in, dude, I'm failing every day, right? I'm treading water over here, bro. Right. But when I went in there and I was kind of talking to him,
you saw the kids,
and and I told him like, hey, we did $670K out of our one retail store last year. Yeah. My wife and I both, we did over $900,000 last year.
Right.
We own over $1 million in real estate.
Right.
And I said, and for me, it was almost like reaffirming that I kind of know what I'm talking about, but
the numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah. And so I was sitting there saying this. And when we were done, I told the teacher, like, hey, I don't think I'm going to bring all that up again. Like, I just felt weird saying it all.
But that's what kids love.
And so she was like, no, like, that's what that was the hook.
Right.
Like, and it validates you being here.
Right.
And so then it was still weird for me to like introduce myself with those numbers and stuff first. Cool. But
that's awesome.
But you're exactly right. She said the same thing. She's like, you're a guy that grew up in St. George, especially when I spoke in Pineview. I was like, dude, across the hall over there.
That's where I went.
Like, that's where I used to hang out, in the middle of classes.
Yeah.
And the business teacher was in, I think he was in Hentosh's class with like Auto Tech Hentosh, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I used to sit in this classroom, this is my favorite class.
That's so cool.
And so it just kind of came real, I think, to him more than anything that like, hey, and I'm not even, like, I feel like I'm just starting. And so
that's amazing.
There's a lot of things I'm trying to do.
So how many times have you done that?
Spoke?
Yeah.
Seven different classes.
That's really cool.
So it's been 4 different days, 7 classes.
I think you should take that and run with it.
Isn't that kind of a cool idea,
that's
though?
A really cool idea.
But like I don't even know why I feel like this is my problem. Like I said, I don't even have a kid in school.
Going back to you're losing your father. That's kind of your mentality. You just see a problem and you want to fix it. I can tell that's the type of person you are.
But yeah, I thought it'd be cool. Like, let's find out 5 things that we think kids should know that you're not being taught.
Right.
So we bring in a wealth manager. We bring in a real estate guy. We bring in a tax professional. We bring in like a trust lawyer, and things like that. And it's like, hey, these are the things that everyone should know, whether you're a high level person or not. Like, these are the things you're actually going to be dealing with every day in life.
And I feel like schools have gotten better. Admittedly, I think they've gotten better with teaching some of those things. Like, did you say there's a real estate class at high school? Really?
Yeah.
See, never existed when I was in high school.
Yeah, we had a travel and tourism that Miss Bracken kind of mixed into real estate a little bit.
Real estate. And then I noticed at Pineview they have a really good welding program. They have all these trade programs.
Dude, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Crimson dude, it's like a college campus.
Really?
There. Have you been over there?
I've never been over there.
Dude, it's like different buildings that are like,
that's crazy.
Each one of them was the size of Pineview.
Right.
And they had an entire like tech building.
That's crazy.
And so they had, one was welding, one was screen printing, one was auto tech, wood shop. I mean, and so it was cool because
that's cool.
Martino and I we ate lunch together, like in the lunchroom. And I was telling her like, dude, I've been so critical of public schools. And I think that it's a waste of money. I think it's a waste of, and then she was like, let me kind of show you something.
Let me show you.
and we just went straight to the tech building. Right. And she was like, she's like, we're trying. It's not that we're not trying,
awesome. That's amazing.
And then that new tech school opened up here.
Yeah.
You heard about that?
I have heard about that.
So I don't know a ton about it. I've actually thought about bringing McCrae.
It's kind of like a trade
talk
school,
about
it, right?
The whole thing is trades.
Yeah.
And it's a high school level.
Yeah.
And so I was like, dude, that maybe, I don't know. I guess maybe I should just go introduce myself over there.
You should.
And just be like, is there anything the business world can do that I can help with?
You totally should. Yeah. That's amazing.
So yeah, I hope that's because I think it's the first in the state. And so it's kind of
I've never heard of
trendsetter thing that they're trying. It's not a trying out. I'm sure they have millions of dollars into that building, but I think it could be a great alternative.
I think that would be a very wise,
Because that was me in high school, dude. I would have went to that high school in a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat, yep.
Because I couldn't wait to get done with school.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Tell me what's new going on at Cedar Fun Center, dude. I love seeing all you guys' new attractions.
It's fun. It's growing. Every month we're we succeeded the last month in sales and revenue. And right now we partnered up with, I can't remember his name. My other partner kind of handles this, but we partnered up with someone that holds the Cedar Street Fest. And so they were holding it somewhere else, and we kind of asked them if they want to come hold it on our parking lot. We have a lot of land around our building. So every Friday night we have a big Cedar Street Fest with 50 vendors. They have karaoke, free climbing wall, free bounce house, and then we offer a free movie inside of our theater. It brings a lot of people in, so that's happening every Friday. We did that all summer long.
Do you guys have one of those water slide things?
We don't.
Should get with Scott Day and put one of those up.
I've been thinking about Scott Day. I need to reach out to him. And then, we have our normal, we upgraded our laser tag system to the newest, best one out there. It's a 2-story laser tag system. We have a laser maze. We have arcade, indoor mini golf.
Oh, the laser maze. It's like lasers going across the room.
You have to avoid the lasers.
It's Mission Impossible stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's really fun. Indoor mini golf, and then a couple discounted theaters. So, yeah,
dude,
$3.
How cool is that, dude?
It's fun.
That you can bring that to Cedar, though.
I know.
You know?
Yeah, it needed it.
And we kind of talked about on the last episode of, like, you've always thought about owning something like this, right?
Yeah. It's something I've always wanted to get involved in, some entertainment business, a fun center type thing. And it kind of, all the puzzles fell into the right place, and
you're doing it.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's awesome, dude.
It's stressful. It's a big, ginormous overhead. I never have owned anything with that big of an overhead, but it's enjoyable.
But you're making money every month. You're running
it's profitable. It's good. Yep.
I paused because I was just thinking, like, think about what your kids are seeing, though.
What?
It's something that you guys.
I know. The funniest thing is our kids are so excited when we first got involved in it, and now they're like, yeah, we've been there. I'm like, are you serious? I would have died to have that as a kid.
It's like the kid, you go over to your friend's house, has a pool.
Exactly.
Or like ping pong, and they're like, ping pong's gay.
Exactly. But no, they still like going over there. It's just the novelty's kind of worn off, but it's fun.
Yeah, but when they get older, dude, to think about.
I know.
So I tell people this that come on the podcast on air and off, like, the podcast to me, really, if I die tomorrow, and I say it all the time, so if people are hearing this for the 40th time, that's fine. But
I haven't heard it yet.
Like, dude, if I die tomorrow, my son's got 109 episodes of me and my friends he can get on here and listen. And he's 2. True. Like, he won't really, I don't think he really remember me. He's 2, right?
That's cool. I never thought about that.
So, but like your kids, like, to see everything that you've poured into that place, and I know you've poured into it. They end up being 15, 18, 20, 40.
Right.
They show their kids that building and be like, yeah, my dad started this. Yeah. Like, think how cool that is.
I know. My wife and I have talked about that. It's fun because I like to, like yourself, I like to try different things, different businesses. Some fail, some succeed. But my wife and I always talk, it's fun to see our kids now get excited. Like my kid, my oldest boy, just the other day, he asked, he's like, well, what business are we going to start next, Dad? I'm like, I don't know. Let's think about it. But it's cool. It's fun seeing their creative mind starting to work, and well, what if we do this? What if we do that? So, yeah, it's.
Now with the pawn shop, is your dad's a partner in that?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So did he run businesses when you were younger? What's his background?
Yeah, his background is just the same business he's had for like 30, 40 years. He still does a little bit of it. He's a dental technician by trade.
Okay.
So he makes dentures and crowns and stuff for all the dentists, not all of them, but some dentists in town. So, but yeah, it's his own business. And
so were you aware of that growing up? Was it a thing for you?
Okay. And he actually had a little lab set up in the garage at our house. So he was always home, and it's something I really enjoyed. And, it's fun having him at home and him being self-employed. So, and it's funny because he's the one that actually got me into being obsessed with being self-employed. I remember when I was probably 12 or something, I told him I wanted to start my own business, and he's like, well, let's do it. And so he told me to save up an X amount of money, and then he went on half of it, and we put our money together, and we bought this lawn aerator, and we went and knocked doors and aerated people's lawns. And I thought it was so cool how I can make over $20 an hour. It took me an hour to aerate a lawn. I got $20, and I just thought that was the most money in the world back then. But it was cool. It's kind of what got me started. And
my parents always supported it, but I I mean, my mom always did like craft shows, and she made crafts out of wood. And my grandpa's like a master. I don't know what a wood person's called.
Woodsman.
Craftsman?
Craftsman.
The woodworker?
A woodworker.
That's it.
Like my grandpa's amazing. Cabinets, I mean, anything wood, he can
cool.
make it.
That's
Huge shop at his house.
Really?
And so my mom kind of took some of that. So I saw like a little bit of it. And my grandpa was a builder. And what I remember of him is he worked for someone else, but he was always doing side stuff in his
projects.
shop.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like I saw a little bit of it, but like
what got you involved in the entrepreneur?
Dude, when I was younger, I was that guy. I
Hustling.
mowed lawns.
Yeah.
I had a lawnmower. I'd push around town and mow people's lawns. I'd go put flyers on people's doors to mow.
It's interesting how some people at a young age
I've just
have
always
that knack and some don't. Yeah.
Well, it was like I just wanted to make money,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't get hired on at Wendy's,
Right.
And so like I just found other ways when I was younger to make money.
Yeah.
And then once I started getting old enough to get real jobs, like I couldn't wait to get done with high school so I could go to work.
Right.
And
right.
I had jobs through high school,
Right.
but like
Yeah.
I'm like, high school's stupid. I just want to go work.
Yeah, I want to make
there,
money. Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And but when I was working at the post office, or really even before the post office, I was at Checker Auto Parts, the one over.
Oh, really?
Well, it's O'Reilly's now, but the one over by Costco.
In high school
Like
or after high school?
Let's see. So I worked at O'Reilly's on the Boulevard in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they opened up that one in Washington, I moved over there.
Oh, nice.
I might be misremembering that. Anyway, so I worked there.
Yeah.
I think there was a time in between. But anyway, so I worked at the one by Costco, and I got along with my boss really well, but I kind of started realizing that I wasn't a great employee because I was very opinionated.
You wanted to do things your way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a better way than they did.
Yep. Yep.
And so if it wasn't for my great relationship with the store manager, it would have got me in a lot of trouble. And then after he left, it did.
Yeah.
When the new store manager came in, we
butt
butt heads and butt heads and butt heads. And then when I went to the post office, so I worked on my own businesses for a little bit, and then I got hired on at the post office when I was getting married. And because I thought, okay, like I got to get the stable job with the insurance and all this stuff till Amanda's done with school.
Right.
And I didn't even use their insurance, but that was my thought. And kind of the same situation, still to this day, really good friends with the postmaster there. And I just realized like I'm not a great employee.
Yeah.
Like I want to do things my way.
Yep.
And I always had little side businesses. So when I was done working my 8 hours, I'd go make holsters or whatever I was doing. And I knew one day I'd do my own thing. I didn't know what it was.
So out of all the pies that you have your fingers in, business wise, what's your favorite one?
Dude, I really love the store. Our safe store.
The safe store.
But it's not because of safes.
Right.
I just like
interaction.
retail. Yeah. I like interacting with people, and there's sometimes I don't.
Yeah, you're like, why am I doing this?
I mean, I can think of one time in particular in like the 4 years we've been open that I had just had to go sit in my truck for a minute because I was like ready to knock someone out.
Right.
But I think that's what it is for me.
You like interacting with people.
Yeah. And with that said, I'm not a real estate professional by any means. We bought a vacation rental out in California at the end of last year, and like we're still trying to stabilize off of it. But
it's something new. It's a learning curve for you. Yeah.
But dude, I love it. Like the real estate side, trying to find deals, analyzing deals, getting into calculators, seeing what cash flows, what doesn't, how much can you put down, getting creative on financing the project. Like, I just love all of it.
I was really into real estate.
When it was good to be.
When it was good to be. Exactly. It was the easy time to be involved. But yeah, I haven't been involved in it for a while. I'm more intrigued, me personally, I'm more intrigued by commercial real estate, but that's a beast to get into, I think, but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to talk to you.
Into that. Yeah, I haven't done the commercial stuff. I knew real estate was always there. I've had a lot of real estate agents in my family, and then my brother Adam now is really into the real estate game in Southern Utah. And so I always knew it was an avenue,
right?
But running your own business and seeing taxes and how it all works, and then there's a lot of tax benefits with real estate,
right? And
I don't know, dude. The more I learned, the more I was like, oh, so this is how people get wealthy.
Yeah, it is.
Oh
man, there's just
And so I've gotten into some coaching stuff now. Like I wear this hat every day, the real estate investing school. So I'm in that. I'm in one called Vodacy. I've had the founder on here, really? Sean Moore.
I'll have to watch that.
And they're like short-term rentals. So that's what we ended up getting in California, was a short-term rental.
Yeah.
And I don't know, dude. It's just, if I could not do everything else and just analyze deals and buy and sell real estate, I'd do it.
Really?
Like I'm not taking any steps because, like I said, I'm still trying to stabilize the last deal.
So what steps do you want to take next with that? Or what direction do you want to go with? Do you want to do short-term rentals?
Dude, I did. When we bought that one, I was 2 feet in everything. I was learning everything I could. And my goal was, I started seeing a possibility of Amanda and I buying 7 or 8, and in 15 years, 20 years. I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing those years out there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
I can retire Amanda.
Right.
And if we had 6 or 7, we just go live in one for 2 months out of the year and just chase the weather.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I'm like a St. George boy. I don't ever see myself leaving, but but I started seeing that, like, this is actually possible.
Right.
Like, if you can get the right ones, build them the right way, get them to stand out and have them cash flow. And then maybe you mix in some long terms too, because it's also like the yin and the yang, like we mentioned earlier. It's like, not everybody has to go on vacations, but everyone has to live.
Yeah, it's true.
So I kind of started seeing both, but it's the numbers. It's easier by the numbers, and it's not always accurate, but by the calculators, it's easier to cash flow a short-term rental.
Right.
It's just not always the case.
Right.
But by the numbers, it shows that it's easier.
How did you get involved in the real estate game?
So we had some money. We knew we wanted to do something. We had equity in our house. Like, I had avenues to get money to put down on something.
Yeah.
And I was thinking commercial too. And I thought, like, well, go build or buy something, move my store into it, rent out the other ones, and we actually had Amy Stevens on here for doing the Ironman. So she did the St. George Ironman that ended up being like the world championship when they couldn't do
had no idea
Hawaii because of COVID.
Right.
And I just asked her what she did for work, and she's like, "Oh, I sell for this." And she's moved on now, but she's like, "I sell for a short-term rental coaching
business
system," whatever. And I was like, "Really? Like, I've wanted to get into some real estate stuff, not really sure, have no direction." And for days, I just was watching. They do a podcast that Sean does with Vodacy, and for days, I just got sucked into his podcast, and then ended up signing up for the coaching. And they have resource after resource after resource. They have realtors nationwide, they have property managers nationwide, just huge networks.
Wow.
And so once I got sucked into that, I was like, okay, it's short-term rental for me.
Yeah. I've always thought that was, is it hard to find them I know certain areas are highly restricted on.
Yeah. It's part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, there are also areas that there's nothing.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of people will be like, well, they can just switch the rules anytime they want. And I'm like, yeah, but that's like just some areas, there's other areas, there's nothing. Yeah. You can do whatever you want. And me being 2 feet in guy, like we wouldn't.
That's the way to do it.
We probably overbought.
That's okay.
On our first one. So I think I've talked about it on here. So we bought two houses in Joshua Tree, or it's right outside of Joshua Tree, called Yucca Valley.
You bought 2?
So it's one. It was one purchase, but there's just 2 houses on the property.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it was called an ADU, so like a casita, basically. So I thought I was buying one house with a casita, and it turned out it was this huge mess.
Oh, really?
We ended up buying 2 single family homes. And so that's part of my stabilizing issue.
What if that aspect makes it worse?
I had to get 2 permits.
Oh, really? Just double all the work.
Yeah, everything.
Wow.
And we ended up getting like the main house live.
before the second one.
Yeah, it was like 4 months later,
Really?
I finally got the second one and dealing with California, and we're out of city limits. So I'm dealing with like San Bernardino County.
Jeez.
And so it's
Learning
been a
curve.
struggle. Yeah. But we're live now. I finally built our direct booking site. So I've got that
I saw
running
that,
now,
yeah.
like a day or two ago. I'm actually going out there next week. We have 2 acres. So it's 2 acres, 2 houses, and a pool.
That's amazing.
And around the 2 acres, we're going to do a Frisbee golf course.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So we'll have I bought 6 baskets, but I think I can run like 9 holes, right? And just like reuse one
2
basket
acres,
or
that's
2.
a lot of land.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And so that's what we're doing. I'm going out next week with my mom. We're putting all the Frisbee golf up. We're doing a bunch of like outdoor seating, like hanging those hammock chairs and stuff.
Yeah.
The houses are set up. They're being rented now. That's why I'm going during the week, because the weekends are all booked.
Yeah.
But we're just not breaking even yet. So that's what sucks.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, our mortgage out there is more than ours here.
Well, that's awesome, man.
But I'm always like, there's 2 things I always go back on this, right? Like you're saying, it's a learning curve, and it 100% is for me. One is like, you can't say I didn't try it.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to go in a direction. And 2, I keep telling myself, like, this is one of those things in like 3 years, I'll laugh that I was so stressed about.
Exactly.
Like I'm pushing that stress tolerance to where I'm like, dude, like Amanda and we're treading water.
Yeah.
Like financially, we're treading water right now.
Right.
And so, and there's months we don't even do that.
Yeah. I know.
But I'm like, in a couple of years, we'll look back and be like, man, we were stressed out, but look, it all worked out.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. I tell my wife all the time, the biggest risk in life is not taking that risk and looking back and saying, I wish I would have done that.
Yeah.
I hate that feeling.
I don't want regret, dude.
Yeah, I don't know. No regrets.
When I'm going to die, I don't want regret that I didn't try something.
Yep.
And I get kickback a lot from family and friends of like, dude, you're leveraging too much, or
like spread yourself too thin.
When we went May, so we bought it in October. So our first payment was November, December. We went to May before we ever had a renter. It's like we floated that house payment all the way to May.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I don't know. I've talked about it a lot on here. So if anyone watches, I know my mom watches every episode. I don't know if there's anyone else.
Of course there is.
But I just think like, it's all going to work out, man. But like when you're in the moment, it's so stressful.
Yeah.
And back what I was saying, like I don't want any regrets when I die to think like, man, I could have done that. But and like Ed Milet has a talk on it, and it's awesome. He talks about like not wanting to live scared.
Right.
And I have a lot of friends that are like, dude, you're way over leveraged. We loaded up credit cards while we were floating the house payment, and we're trying to work off paying those credit cards back down.
Yeah.
Like I'm basically working 3 jobs right now, trying to get as many work hours as I can in.
Yep.
And, but hey man, you can't say I didn't try.
Yep. I agree. Yep.
Worst thing that happens is we lose it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I always play the worst case scenario game. Worst case scenario, go bankrupt. What? Start over. You know how to do it now.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, so in 5 years, I'll go buy another one.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
All right, man. Again, dude, I love sitting down with you. We need to do it more often.
We do. Yep, it's been a blast.
Anything else? You got any questions for me? You feel good about it?
Feel good about it. Yeah.
We're an hour and a half. So
are we really?
It's perfect.
Let's go down another rabbit hole.
Goes fast. Well, I'm like the whole, what people would call a conspiracy about,
right.
The school system. I know you and I could get rolling on COVID pretty hard.
And
so,
there's a lot.
So I'm like, we'll just have to bring you on again, dude.
We'll do it again.
And roll through all that. And and I want to mention your podcast. Is there anything you want to talk about with it? Maybe just how people can get to it, how can they
I
find
appreciate
it, what
it.
it's
Yeah,
about?
it's called the Positive Tribe Podcast. We're on most of the major podcast platforms. And just real quick, we started it because of what I went through with my brother, how nasty social media life is sometimes, and my partner Dan, he lost his dad when he was in high school too. So we kind of just got together and we wanted to start something where we talk about positive things and try and shift everyone's mindset to think positively. So it's fun. So,
and how many episodes you in? We're like brand new.
Yeah, we're brand new. I think we're on number 9 now. So
that's awesome, though.
Brand new. It's fun.
Are you weekly?
Yeah. Yep. We
Awesome.
shoot every Sunday and post it every Monday. So
It's crazy, man. It's
soon
like
we'll be up to the 110 status like you.
well, that's when we first got on. I'm like, dude, I did not understand the commitment and the time commitment. And
But you know what? It's so fun. Like, I have never been on a podcast before you invited me on a year and a half ago or whatever it was. And after that, I told my wife, like, that was so fun. I want to start one, but I had no idea how. And,
yeah,
and I know Mallory here, she has a great studio, but my partner, he kind of knew a little bit about it. He's like, yeah, let's just try it. And so one thing led to another. And so,
well, I mean, that was my thing is I was like, I can sit here and talk to someone for an hour, but I need someone to do all of this and all the editing. And
there's a lot.
And like, that's where Mallory stepped in and took all that off my plate. And
our
that's
skills aren't as good as hers yet. So,
well, that's what allowed us to start now, right? Like when her and I decided we were rolling, it was like, I don't know, 30, 40 days. And we had the first episode out.
Amazing. Yeah.
And so, I mean, and this isn't possible without Mallory.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
she does a fantastic
everything. Even the studio, like I didn't have a place to do this, right? Anyway, shout out to Blue Form, Mallory and Blake, killing the game,
killing it.
No, dude, I love that. I mean, we've had, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 people that have been on mine that eventually started their own.
It's so fun.
And there's people that have been like, dude, you've got to do this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so it's, and I don't know, I'm patting myself on the back here, I guess a little bit, but I'm like, hopefully I opened that door to where people could see it.
You opened that door for me.
But yeah, dude.
People are intimidated by it, but it's fun. It's
so fun.
Yeah.
And like we were saying, most people on here, it's their first time ever doing anything like this. So I'm like, dude, just chill.
I know.
You forget all the lights and cameras and everything's going on.
Two friends talking.
All right. You also have like a Facebook group for it too. I wanted to mention that. So people.
Yeah. It's called the Positive Tribe Space. And it's just a group where people can, post positive things and comment on positive things. And it's fun. It's got almost 400 people. So
yeah, kind of turn that negative. What can be seen as a negative platform.
Yeah, we don't talk
social media.
It's kind of I like talking politics more than the next guy, but in this group we kind of have a rule: we don't talk politics, no religion, no left versus right, whatever.
What's something that good happened today?
Yeah, exactly. What's something you can do good? What's something that did happen?
So now I can post on there and be like, we had Derek on the podcast.
That's right. That's right.
All right, man. Episode 109.
Hey, appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming. Like I said, I've reached out a couple times, so I know how busy you are running both things, and it's like in 2 separate towns, so it's not even that you're like next door.
Around,
So appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time out. Thanks, Mandy. Thanks for taking care of the kids, giving us some time to do this, and we'll wrap it up.
Appreciate it.
All right, guys. If you're still with us, please like, share, comment, reach out to the good tribe. The Positive Tribe.
Positive Tribe.
Reach out to the Positive Tribe. Check out their podcast. Get on the Facebook page. And, if you don't have an outlet on somewhere that you want to feel some positivity, if you got a lot of negative surrounding you in school and work or whatever it is, that's a good outlet right there to be a part of, and kind of take that tribe as your own. So I love it, dude.
Appreciate it.
Love everything you're doing. And that's it. See you guys next week.